Thank you very much for everyone to come today. My name is, you can call me Zhang for short. So I'm a PhD candidate at Mecca. I'm also part of the Center for Culture and Technology, which is the organizer of this talk. So it's my honor to share my PhD research with you. So my PhD is about digital self-representation of Chinese migrants. In such an era when digital use is so pervasive, I try to look at what digital self-representation can provide to Chinese migrants. So specifically, I look at the practice, media production practice of digital storytelling, in which migrants can share their stories in digital means. So first, I want to introduce what digital storytelling is. Digital storytelling is a practice of media production invented in 1990s. At that time, there was an ongoing community arts movement in the United States. So it was invented by two filmmakers based in California who wanted to change the status quo of people using arts for self-expression. They believed that the ability of self-expression was a central literacy for social participation. But at that time, the ability to express oneself through arts and the right to self-expression through arts was largely controlled by professional artists and artistic authorities. So they designed this digital storytelling workshop to put media experts with lay people who are not very familiar with digital creation, and they let the experts help lay people to create their short videos based on personal experience. So after they established the Story Center to promote this practice, they found the practice very empowering for different social groups, but mostly in the Western societies. So the practice has been used for advocacy and commercial purposes during the past 2 decades. It has been taken up by activists for various social groups. It has already also inspired industrial innovation. For example, at NAP, for tourism in China was inspired by the idea of digital storytelling. So in the 2009 book, Story Circle, Professor Zhang and Colleen McWilliam called digital storytelling kind of a social movement. So digital storytelling has been used for research. It has grown into an interventional tool to explore the democratization potential of digital narratives for various social groups. For example, Melbourne-based researcher Zhou Taichi went to Southeast Asian countries to use digital storytelling to lift poverty in those local communities. And Queensland-based researchers explore the potential of digital storytelling to give a voice to women in Turkey and to LGBT groups in Australia. So researchers used to be really celebratory about digital storytelling in those discussions. However, in recent years, there has been an increasing trend to look into the complexities of having a voice through digital storytelling. UK-based researcher Nancy Silverman, for example, looked into the BBC digital storytelling project and found that, like many other technology uses, digital storytelling is also a site of power struggle. So there has been tensions formed in the institutional aspect, the textual aspect, and cultural aspect of the practice. And another researcher, Nick Codry, believed that if not conducted appropriately, digital storytelling can well become a practice which is isolated and inconsequential. And the digital stories might be just be retelling the template dominant stories of the society. So the researchers start to be more cautious towards the practice. So because I am very interested in the migration activities of Chinese people in China and overseas, so I was curious if digital storytelling can provide opportunities for Chinese people on the move to have a voice. And if there are these opportunities, how Chinese people on the move would take up these opportunities. And if there aren't those opportunities, why would this be? And so I conducted workshops in both countries, Australia and China, with Chinese international migrants and internal migrants. And I set the theme as stay, because stay, translated in Chinese as 停留, is a very neutral word. It can be short, it can be long, it can be about not leaving a place, it can be about status quo in everyday life. So I conducted about 10 workshops and had around 60 participants. Most of them are Chinese. So I think I need to give a bit of introduction on the workshop, because compared to many ways to collect data, especially in qualitative research, the workshop requires long hours devotion from participants. Usually a workshop lasts for 2 afternoons, 8 hours, so it's very intense and quite demanding for participants. So there are 3 parts. The first is story circle exercise. I have participants sit around me. I will throw out topics to each participant, and they will take turns to make up stories in response to my topics. For example, make up a story with 3 random words, and it's supposed to be a warm-up exercise, but the confidence and oral competence trained in that round can be translated into later stages. Second part is the main body of the workshop, video creation. So participants look for photos they feel relevant to the topic in their laptops, Facebook pages, WeChat moments, and then they record their voice narrating a story to the script. Usually they, write a script in advance, and then they combine the sound and the image to make a small movie. And actually most of the time used in this session was for editing. So there was very heavy editing during this session. And after each video was finalized, I played the videos to all the participants in the workshop. So through conducting those workshops, I tried to develop a storytelling approach to digital self-representation. I tried to look at 3 kinds of narratives that emerged in the process of digital storytelling. The first, of course, is a migrant narrative in first person. So I wanted to find out if there were anti-hegemonic stories emerged from their statements on migration in their stories. And I also look at researcher narrative and technology user narrative to see how the roles of researcher and the role of softwares and device played in shaping the self-representation. The workshops contributed to 2 case studies in 2 countries. The first study was a workshop conducted here in Perth. So this story is about a Chinese international student traveling around the country and trying out new experiences. The participation in WA encountered both dynamics and challenges. When I approached Chinese migrants, whether temporary or permanent, or whether professional or coming with a family, or educational, they were very disinterested at hearing the proposal that, oh, you will please come to my workshop. It will be an all Chinese filmmaking workshop on migration. And I think it has two reasons. First is most migrants I approached or enjoyed a kind of an elitist position in Australia because they don't have any urgent financial or social or ethno-racial stress that they need to address in a video form, or and also they they don't have this. The notion of Chinese migrant is very dispersed. It's very hard to. People would think, oh, are you going to invite Malaysian Chinese? Are you going to? So this idea is very vague. So people don't, even a person likes to be with Chinese, they need to know exactly what kind of Chinese you're going to invite. So, and another reason is that most Chinese, when they came here, they experienced a downward social mobility. So they compared with their previous life in China, they don't have many friends here. So everything costs an effort. Even attending the workshop, some of them need to think about, where should I put my kids during the workshop? Where to take a bus to the Curtin University? So all this actually pose a challenge to their attendance. But it was kind of interesting that some migrants came to me saying that, Zhang, could you hold a workshop or to include some non-Chinese? I'm so interested to meet non-Chinese friends and practice my English. So it proved to be effective, when I said there will be people from different countries in the workshop. And then I did attract a lot of Chinese to come. During the story, and this cross-cultural interaction proved to be, people were really drawn to this English-speaking and multicultural workshop during the round, especially during the round of story circle. People after the games, most Chinese felt that they had a big improvement in self-expression in English, both in their language ability and confidence and social skills. During the video creation, most participants were very devoted and they were very perfectionist. So before the workshop, they said, I don't have much time to spend on it. And after, when they were in the workshop, they always asked for more time to finalize a video. However, during video creation, when people really have the opportunity to freely interact with each other, Chinese people withdrew into their small Mandarin-speaking group and didn't reach out. So when I asked them, they still said, my English is not good, I'm not good at socializing, and sometimes they would racialize non-Chinese. They would say, next time, could you please invite more native speakers of American and European origins, because their English will be better. And after workshops, there were two participants who came to me separately asking for additional workshops, but one-on-one. So it actually surprised me because I thought they had enough. They had put in enough hours in this process. And they said they really want an extra workshop because they really have a story they really want to make into a video and share with family and friends. So the workshop turned out to be self-sustainable and it had a brief afterlife. And then, but in the video distribution stage, two participants were quite taken aback from the idea that the video will be played to the whole group, and they said, oh, it's for privacy reasons. Actually, one person made a video about past relationships. It's really private life, private privacy. But the other person actually did a self-censorship because he made a video quite challenging his home country. So it's his private thoughts. That it's actually not privacy, but his private thoughts that might challenge the authority. The stories made from the workshops, mainly the Chinese participants' stories made in the workshop displayed their life in Australia. According to the content, I classified them into three groups. And the first group is letter stories. It's made by the Chinese young students. They were very consistent. All of them made letter stories about their letter time, traveling around the country to scenic spots, trying out the local food, celebrating festivals with their Chinese friends. And these stories demonstrate a tourist syndrome, which is a modern lifestyle proposed by Zygmunt Bauman. So they were uncertain if they could stay here after they graduate. So they didn't get very engaged with the local community, and they didn't grow very attached to Australia. And for me, they really looked like tourists rather than students. The second group of stories is autobiographical stories made by professional migrants. So these stories are much more aspirational. It's about life journey, which took them to Australia and took them to personal achievements. So they recounted their life experience back to when they were in China and back to when they first came here. The third group is called anecdotal stories. It's about small encounters and happenings, which they told in such a humorous and self-laughing manner. Actually, these stories were mostly about adversity, were the only stories about adversity. So they encountered a lot of hardships and difficulties in life, but they were still positive about life here. For example, a lady told about her mispronouncing honey as holy, mistaking dog food as human meal when she first came here. They were the humorous stories. So combining, the three groups, I argue that these stories demonstrate an agency view that spoke back to the entrenched welfare view on international migration. These stories show that their storytellers are not dependent on the socio-economic gains from the society, or dependent on any, on the government or on any people. They showed they were very independent. They can grapple with the difficulties on their own. They broaden their own visions. They pursue their own careers. And for me, these stories are very much less heard in Australia, for example, and Western societies at large. So then I move on to the second case study, which was done in Zhejiang, China. Zhejiang is a province, it's one of the wealthiest province in China. It is located in southeastern coast, the coastline, and it actually saw the first sprout of capitalism in China back in China's Yuan dynasty. So many students came to a university. So in this case study, I recruited mainly inter-provincial students who moved from one province to another, and they were all from one university located in Zhejiang province. So that's about a student coming from a northern province in China to the southern province of Zhejiang, and before she graduated, she went to different cities to look for job opportunities and ideal living environment. So participation also met some challenges, but besides challenges, I think the dynamic was more important because actually since 1978, when China resumed its college entrance exam, university students actually became a very substantial portion of domestic migrants flooding into different major cities in China, and became the very important workforce in those cities. However, local authorities always believe that students are still tasked and temporary and useless, the uncontributing members of the local society. Actually, because they are well educated, so it has been very easy for them to settle down and get the official permanent residency in the local society. However, in the official discourse, when you mention, actually there is a migrant group called the Chinese university students, people will feel very confused how to categorize them, because in the local discourse, there are only two categories of internal migrants. One is called permanent residency, with holding the official household registration. The other category is floating population, which actually covered a very wide range. It covers university students. It also covers rural migrant workers, who are the most disadvantaged group in the society. So I feel that we do need to single out Chinese university students as a distinctive, as a unique migrant group to talk about their experience and their identity. And they are surely the rightful authors of domestic mobility in China. I also met some challenges. The first was because I was not a student or staff to the university I was visiting. I had limited access to the equipment. Students had to bring their own laptops and smartphones. Also, it was very hard to recruit media students. That university was media focused, and the students mostly learned their video creation skills when they were in year one. So digital storytelling appeared to them as a very basic, video production activity. Some of them, from a technology-based view, it's not very attractive for media learners. And also there was a privacy issue. A girl came to me saying, it's too private to show to people. Actually, he was afraid that his very straightforward view on internal migration in her story would be challenged by other participants. The stories produced in Zhejiang province remained our ideas about China's southern areas. Before introducing the stories, I have to give you some background of the geo-advantage discourse in China. Now, since China launched its economic reform and opening up policy in 1978 or 1979, the mastermind behind this policy, called China's leader at the time, Deng Xiaoping, proposed a national strategy called letting some people get rich first. So it means he believed that some people, part of the population located in advantageous transportation locations, along the southern and the eastern coastline, they have more opportunities to attract Western investment and nurture the market economy. So when they get rich, they can transfer their skills and also help the poorer areas in China's inland. So even now, China is now in a post-reform era when the economic has slowed down and many second-tier and third-tier cities has caught up in infrastructure and the job opportunities. So this course has persistent. These students came to Hangzhou actually with advice from their family, their relatives, and their teachers, saying that, oh, there will be a better life there, you will have better job opportunity. And even in the recent One Belt One Road initiative, geo advantage is still very important. Mr. Xi said, oh, we should make use of the geo advantage of port cities. So this has been a myth. You know, it used to be something really true, really pragmatic, but now it has been a myth that has driven domestic migration till today. There are three groups of stories made. The first I call, according to their destination of migration, I label them as North-South stories, multi-destination, and getaway stories. North-South stories is about students moving their life from northern provinces to south. So these stories were about leisure times they spent on going to the theme park in Hangzhou, trying out street food stalls, and traveling to the ancient style tourist towns like Zhejiang. They were looking for the cultural sounds, southern culture, which was very, which was renowned for its being very delicate, very reserved, but actually through their stories, the distinctive southern culture was nowhere to see. It was all about the consumerist style of spending on products, and actually the landscapes were all the product, the outcome of globalization and China's engagement with the market economy. For example, the street food stores and theme parks one girl encountered in Hangzhou can also be found in her home city in Qingdao. The second group of stories is multi-destination stories. These stories are about, just like the story I played to you, are about students before their graduation traveling to cities to look for an ideal place to live in. And the unanimous ending of these stories are no place to settle down, because there are always unforeseeable frustrations, whether people-wise or job-wise or living condition-wise. So it actually makes a counter story to the narrative that a good city is a terminal of happiness, is a grain of pasture. And the third group of stories is getaway stories. A student made a micro documentary using museum photos about the past of his home city. I think it was about the 1970s China. At that time, China was very poor, and people wore very similar clothes, way men, women look alike, and had very few entertainment activities. People went to theater, market, sports meeting together. However, for that student born after 1995, he felt it was attractive to him compared to today's life, and he felt people were at that time more spiritually pure and were not so materialistic. So he said he would refrain from settling down in major cities. He would rather choose a smaller city. So all these stories combined demonstrate a decentering move from the geopolitical myth that I just introduced, And it mostly tells that people, they all have choices, and they don't need to base their choice just on the cities. So I believe through this storytelling activity, digital storytelling is potential to be a practice of cultural citizenship for migrants. Despite those challenges and constraints, digital storytelling provided Chinese migrants with quality access to new media technologies. So when I asked them to use their original voice and original photos, actually their creativity and originality and their unique voice was guaranteed. And because of the technology advancement, we don't need to rely on computers, so we can use smartphones, can use laptops. So the institutional support of a device actually was not that important as before, and so institutions doesn't enjoy the privilege of intervening in this activity. And I think it's also interesting that it mobilized the people's digital archives, because after we randomly take photos on a daily basis, we barely have an opportunity to look back on those photos again. And those photos' meaning-making life actually was very short. But in this digital storytelling, the meaning-making was extended, and people start to reflect and be critical with those, photos and the random act of photography. And the energy during the workshop was contagious, was very, it formed a kind of synergy that moved everyone to try their best. And in the stories, I believe the migrants portray themselves not as recipients of welfare, but they laid claims to dignity and visibility. This was consistent with Rosaldo's arguments on cultural citizenship, although that argument was specifically oriented towards Latino Americans. So in these stories, they show their distinctive, unique experience, and it was really the first step before, the wide acceptance of mutual difference in the public realm. And by creating their own original symbolic resource on migration, they became self-informed citizens rather than being informed by experts and authorities. And it's very important at the end of the activity, they do affirm that they are migrants and they are the rightful speakers on the topic of migration. So I think that tells us that this participatory practice should be a sustained effort rather than a one-off thing. So there are, things we need to think about in further research on this practice, because we rarely think about how to experiment with different non-digital resources. We always think of upgrading the technology for the practice, but we can incorporate more local elements into the practice and also make the practice in different forms, not necessarily in a workshop form. And also the privacy concern was very notable in both case studies. It's not just about the safety of the online environment, it's also about the human instinct of being afraid to be disagreed with. But, by, like Michael Casey said the other day, this is by establishing this echo chambers, we only share with the stories with like-minded people. It's not good for us to eliminate the bias on issues. So that's all about my research. Thank you very much.